Hey, today I have a Q&A for you, and let's just jump into it. It was people commenting on my videos, and sometimes some of the comments they sort of not demand, but they are easier and better to talk about on video. So I'll do that. Whoop. And here we go. So this first question, what do you think of the Panzer 3G with a double coaxial MMG? It's great. That's it. It's it's the best darker Panzer, darker tank that we have now in version 3. Um, it's just really good because you can split fire, right? You have the main gun. It's fairly cheap. Um, and that means it can really threaten infantry, and at the same time, it is also a threat to other tanks. Um, in general, would it be better to have two of them at veteran, or would it be better to have one at regular with command and a Panzer 4H with veteran and Panzer Ace? I don't think I know Panzer Ace is a little bit of a buff to the heavier Panzers, Panzer 4 especially maybe. But it means you have to buy it as veteran. You're paying such an insane amount of points to get that bonus. I have yet to see that it's worth it. We're not seeing them being used competitively yet, and we shall see with the next few tournaments. So what I say on this channel is not just my opinions on these things. I think that it's too expensive. I think that it's not worth it still to buy veteran tanks and get the Panzer Ace. But I my opinion on that is purely my opinion. It's not based on facts yet. We need more facts. We need more data from tournaments before we can say with any confidence that this is not good or this is good, right? So I'm reluctant to actually judge on this issue here as the data stands right now. I would say try it out, but if you're going to try out a Panzer Ace, a heavy Panzer, then do that one at veteran command tank, because you'll be impossible to pin, basically. You'll be moving every single turn, and you'll be killing something most of the time. So, and then have your other tanks, your other vehicles being regular, I think. I think that's the way to go. I'm still trying to make a good comb that leaves me comb. What's a comb? I don't know. Plenty of room and for good infantry and some indirect HE like forward observer or medium and light mortars. Yeah, and that's the problem, right? With the heavy panzers is you're paying such an insane amount of points that the rest of your army sort of lags behind, right? You don't get the right tools. You don't get what you need to actually pressure the opponent, and the opponent will, if it's a good opponent, he'll focus on your weak army and try to pin your tank and then ignore it. So that is still the problem, even with Panzer Ace. That's why you need it to move every single turn. Right, so that's the first question. Second question. Hey Bo, I have two questions for you. My and your understanding of competitive V3 is that armor is the absolute best, generally. The Soviets have very decent anti-tank options, but in your videos, the meta of the Soviet is very underrepresented. Why do you think that is? Yes, that is a very, very good question. Every single tournament I've seen so far of V3, Soviets have been underrepresented, and it's weird because my first reading of the rules, my first thoughts about playing competitive bolt action in version 3 was that, I'm going to play Soviets, because they're really good. And a lot of people don't feel like that. And I think that there was at least one thing that we can say that the Soviets were lacking behind with. And that is when V3 started, Lend-Lease was not a thing yet. It's now become a thing, and Lend-Lease was the best tanks in the Soviet roster always. So the Soviets hadn't got their good tanks. Now they have, and I think that at least for some Soviet players, I know that they were complaining about losing their good armor. So that can be a thing. That can be why some Soviet players stopped using Soviet for a period. I also think that the rise of Germany and how people thought that Germany was suddenly good again also boosted Germany and perhaps pulled some players from Soviets to Germany. Could be a thing. And the final thing that I think has pressured Soviets is that in V3, inexperienced dudes are not really a thing. Your infantry hordes have sort of died out. We're not seeing a lot of those in the army builds for tournaments anymore. And I think that was one of the main ways that Soviets ran their forces. They ran them simply with a lot of inexperienced infantry and some good tanks and some anti-tank options. And you can't really do that successfully anymore, perhaps. I think, or at least people think, I believe that people think that that is no longer possible. I'm not sure. And we don't yet have the data to support any conclusions about this, if it's right or if it's wrong. We don't actually know. Another way that people ran Soviets in the olden days of V2 was that they ran them as barbecue Soviets. So engineers in Bren carriers, and they just ran up. And Bren carriers was removed because of Lend-Lease for a good while. They're now back, which means we'll see them again. The T-20s that you could run your engineers in as well didn't really fit the minimum size engineer unit. And it was way too expensive compared to the Finnish unreliable T-20s. So that was a nerf. And at the same time, everyone sort of felt that the flamethrowers had been nerfed quite a lot. They have. Is it enough to stop barbecuing completely? No, not necessarily. We're still seeing some players run barbecue and do so successfully. But it's the players who know how to run barbecue that are doing that. It's not like your average Joe that just build a Soviet list and tries out some flamethrowers. No, and you're going to have to invest so heavily in it. So that also really has stopped. So a lot of the things that people used to do with Soviets have stopped. Now, yes, the best AT options of the game are the Soviets. But Soviet players, I think, are going to have to adjust. Because the new standard meta that I'm seeing, at least, is that people are bringing light tanks, and quite often with recce. So they're bringing what would in version 2 would have been armored cars, basically. A lot of those. And recce, the Soviet anti-tank option of the dog mines, doesn't work against recce. It simply doesn't work. You shoot your dog mine, the vehicle recces. The dog mine cannot now hit the vehicle. Over and done. So the new focus on recce vehicles, and I mean, if people are bringing transports, they're also quite often trying out the recce platoon now. Now, it's not something that happens a lot, I know, but if people take transports, they try out the recce platoon, because that will give them that recce on the vehicle, and that also means that transports are no longer really a target option. And the transports in other sections, like rifle platoon transports, have completely disappeared. People are not really bringing them because they're so goddamn vulnerable. So the target area, the target environment have changed, and so has the rules, and I think a lot of Soviet players are still trying to adapt to that. And 2 more questions. You said recently that you don't particularly like doing list reviews. Yeah, it's something I started doing in the early days of this channel, when I was trying to promote some of the tournaments that I was running. I just, put up people's lists and talked about them, and it was great. It worked. And then people started sending me lists, and that turned into a way to get more viewers and to have people engage. And a lot of people seem to enjoy it when I talk about lists. So I just continued doing that. But it is something that, because I'm always way behind on the list reviews, because so many people send lists, I can't really catch up. So it's not something that I particularly like, and I do like looking at views. I think lists. I think I'm quite good at looking at a list and interpreting what this list is trying to do, because I've done it so much. The problem with it for me is not that it's like YouTube work that I don't like. It's not that. It's that people may start to think that lists are what matters, and I don't think that's true. So personally, I would much rather talk about tactics and on the game experiences. Those are a little harder to do. Ideally, I would want to do like sports commentator style battle reports where I comment on other people's like moves or battles, individual bits of video where we're talking through like, how do you do this, and we sort of view a bit of it. That demands quite a lot of editing, and I don't really like doing too much editing, as you can see on my videos. But that would be one thing. I also quite like doing the tactics videos. Those take a lot more work and are not something that I'm comfortable with until I have enough data on what works in V3. So it's not something that I have been able to do since V3 came out, because this half year hasn't given us enough for me to say, this is how you win tournaments, this is how you win games. Not yet. I'm getting there. I'm slowly getting there. But not yet. So, yeah. That's the kind of content I like. I also think that I could happily put other stuff than bolt action on my channel. And our club has talked quite a lot about maybe trying to get a little bit into Saga and stuff. Napoleonics is on its way. Our American Civil War is on its way. All of that, I may film some of it, put this on this channel as well, because it's also something that I enjoy. Final question, and this was to a video where I called out for playtesters to help me with my pack that's going to balance the game. The question is, what do you consider unbalanced at this time? Now, I have been trying to stay very neutral about V3. I know some people have been complaining about it. Some people think it's great and the changes were needed. I think there are some things, and now I have played it for half a year. I read it during my summer vacation, and I played it. No, it was the autumn vacation. I read it a little bit before the rest of you guys, but I read it and immediately thought, this is unbalanced, this is unbalanced, this is unbalanced. But I haven't want to talk about that very much because of basic loyalty, and I think that it's not helpful to complain about something until you've tested it out for quite a while. Now I have tested it out. I run my own tournaments. I have played in tournaments, and I think there are a few things that I can say with a high degree of certainty. I think terrain balance has become a lot more important, especially line of sight blockers. And you can really unbalance the game if you don't get the balance of terrain right. I think the game now leans very much into passive play if you don't get the terrain right. And I think passive play is boring. So passive play would be for me, for someone basically to sit in their own deployment zone for most of the game and just shoot, not maneuver, not move. And I don't like that. I think that's really boring. It's a boring game. I know it's very, very realistic. I've said that multiple times, right? I don't care about the World War II realism of bolt action. That is not what I'm about. I'm about a game that's balanced, a game that's fun, a game that's engaging, that moves. And one of the things that I think have stopped that movement incentive is the death of close combat. We're seeing so little close combat now. And I know that close combat, like actual combat with knives and stuff, it did happen in World War II, but not a lot. I don't care about that either. It was good for the game. And I think it would be very easy for us to mentally say, well, close combat is not actually just, knives and daggers. It's also like at point blank range where we're standing there and actually you could hit me, but I'm choosing to shoot you with my pistol. Or using hand grenades or whatever, like close encounters. Let's call it close encounters instead of close combat. I think that is needed for the game to be an actually balanced game. Yes, it was perhaps too strong for some units. It's always been too strong for some units that are really good at close combat, right? But those units are now the only units that can do close combat. Gurkhas and Polish Lancers. Everyone else, you're not seeing them in choosing close combat anymore. There's no reason to, because it's more expensive in manpower. It's less certain that you'll win. All of that, and it's really certain that you're going to lose dudes. All of that I don't think is particularly balanced. I also think that there's something with the force organization chart, because it allows spamming in a degree that makes infantry more or less obsolete in the game now. Yes, I know infantry is the only thing that could win you games, but what I'm seeing is that people are hiding their infantry until turn 5, and then they try to rush the objectives. And while they're doing that, their tanks are rushing up and doing all the killing. And if they want to be passive and defend their own, they put an artillery battery of AA guns down and go on ambush for the whole game. That doesn't feel balanced. It doesn't feel fun to me. So, final thing that I don't think is really balanced for tournament play right now is I think there's a problem with the missions in the rulebook. You should be able to take missions straight from the rulebook and just roll them up and have a game at a tournament or a pickup game. And you can't, because there are combinations there that don't work. And I also think that we've seen these missions and played these missions quite extensively. We need more. We need more missions that are balanced, that are competitive, and I think I potentially have a couple that I have thought up. There's also a couple that I regularly go to and pick up, so timely objectives, as it's not in any of the rule books, but it's a really good mission, right? So what I'm doing right now is that I'm writing a compendium, which is a tournament play compendium that addresses some of these unbalances, and it's a compendium where it's basically for TOs or groups of players that want to run events that are a little bit more balanced, and then they can pick and choose what of the rules that are written down, what do they like, what do they think balance their game, and they can leave behind those that, like, it may just be me that feels that close combat is so nerfed that it's unusable now, right? So they can leave behind the close combat rules that I've written, or if they don't like the missions, they can use whatever, right? It's not something that's a mandate. You have to use this whole pack. No. It's a pack that I'm writing that you can pick and choose from, Right now it's at a bunch of people who signed up to be playtesters, and I'm just waiting for their feedback. Do the missions work? Do the rules work? Do the changes to the force organization, do they work? Is it a more balanced game? Is it a fun game? Once that's back, I'll sit down, write the final bits of the pack, hopefully, and then there'll be another round of review, and then it will be released for you guys. So that's what I'm doing right now, to balance the game for tournament play. Right, that was it from me today. I hope you enjoyed that. See you in the next video. Cheers.